안녕하세요.
And namaste, everyone.
Hello, everyone. I am Bagmita, your host for today's postcard, along with my co host.
Jhertau Her.
And we are bringing to you another episode with our IKF Spring Fellow. So, today in our episode, we have Ritika Verma. When people think about climate research, they often imagine scientists in laboratories or engineers working with satellites or something. But what if your journey of climate research starts with policy, begins with humanities and social sciences? Today's guest, Ritika, our IKF Spring Fellow, took an unconventional path from studying society and public policy to working on climate governance, geospatial analytics, urban heat resilience, and sustainability. In this episode, we will explore how interdisciplinary thinking is helping build more climate resilient future. With this, let's move ahead with our guest today, Ritika. Hello, Ritika. Welcome to the IKF podcast.
Hi, Bagmita. Hi, Jhertau. So it's so great to back here. And so myself, Ritika Verma. I am a fresh graduate from Indian Institute of Technology, Madras, with a 5-year integrated master's with a minor of social and economic policy. My work is mostly about climate research, with inclusion of geospatial analysis, mostly working on earth intelligence. And majorly, I've worked upon climate policies so far, the analysis, etc. And my work lies somewhere on the intersection of building the translation of these policies into on-ground grassroots level.
Ritika, given your academic journey and your kind of unconventional route into climate policy, can you tell us how you started and you got into the field?
Yeah, actually, that's a very interesting story, I must say. So technically, the master's is in English studies, what they provide us with. But ever since I was interested in geography in school, and then I pursued geography honors for a while in University of Delhi before transferring to IIT Madras. So I had a gap year. So there I was interested in geography. Then I got interested in GIS and remote sensing. And then when I came to IIT, I saw people working and taking climate change as a very serious research area that it is really affecting people. And eventually it will. So I got interested in climate policy. And as a humanities and social sciences student, how would I be able to contribute into this area? So then I took sustainable studies, climate economics, etc., and understood that yes, this is somewhere where I can focus on, I can work. So yes, then I every year, every summer, every winter, I would go for internships here and there, maybe some working somewhere in climate finance or working somewhere in climate policy, or maybe the environmental sustainability side or ESG reporting, etc. So yeah, that's how I build it. And I've reached here so far.
Oh, so interesting. Something, Ritika, you mentioned that you are in IIT Madras. And usually, what happens is that in a engineering or institute where you're surrounded by the STEM people all around, to create a space for humanities and social sciences itself becomes a challenge of its own. And talking about your topic, coming people usually assume that you need that STEM background for a research like this. So, what has your experience of working in a STEM institute as a social science student working on the topic taught you?
Clearly, yes. Yeah, there were a lot of drawbacks. At first, people would say that you're from English studies, so why not taking somewhere as hydrofiction or moving towards environmental literature side? But I was really interested into literature, not saying that it's degrading or something, but yeah, it's up to your own research interest. So yes, to some extent, I would say that you need to have some sort of technical skills. So currently in my research area, you need to know the geospatial analytical skills, you need to know particular softwares, and you would also agree that Stata, R, Python, these are everywhere, especially with the integration of AI from past 3-4 years. So you need to have some sort of basic technical skills. But coming from an engineering institute, yeah, it was hard. But when you have peers around who are highly competitive, then you would also not be at your own pace. You would also try to be at their pace and match up to that to their level. So I tried my hard, and touch wood, I really had very great peers from mechanical, computer science, etc. So yeah, they have helped me a lot, especially working towards these technical areas. Even if it's some group project, they would help me out. So I think it takes a lot of people to work into a particular area, but yes, you need to have an environment which is making you enable learning these skills.
I think that's so important to talk about because I also come from the same type of background as you, where I started humanities and then moved into STEM. And with your move into STEM, I think this is something we might both share. What was like a specific experience that kind of taught you, oh, this is what I want to pursue, given the difficulties of incorporating both the humanities and the STEM aspects of your field?
Clearly, it does. It is. Even Bagmita, you would also understand it. Clearly, you've been involved in social sciences all this long and pursuing your PhD. But yes, Bits Pilani, it's the same scenario, right?
It is. That's why the question that, or in making the space for social sciences in a institute which is known for its STEM background, it's very difficult. So as Jertau asked, I would also like to know, what was that deciding factor that you decided that this is the field that I further pursue?
I guess there was one person behind it in my first year. She was the new professor, the new climate policy professor, the first professor who was invited. And yeah, I just got inspired by her, and I really liked her journey, whatever she has worked so far. And she was working thoroughly here and there, PhD, postdoc, and then obviously, if you have some particular gap years, and people always question it, but she didn't had any of that because she was continuously working, and then she came as the assistant professor. So I think that was the turning point when I saw her thriving the struggle, and then I could see that I could resonate with her, the struggle and the background she comes from. So yeah, I feel that was a turning point, deciding factor for me. Some professors just come to the class, and then you're just in the awe of them, right?
Bringing your academic background to our current affiliation of all three of us, IKF. So tell us something about you are associated with IKF and how has that been? How did you come across IKF? What has your journey been so far?
IKF happened out of nowhere, clearly for me. I was looking out for some opportunities, and it seemed like a nice one. And then, since it was getting established as a new think tank in South Korea, so I was like, maybe let's just go for it. I got in. Professor Rajiv had my interview. He liked my profile, and he was like, "Your interest lies. It resonates with our vision, and maybe you could go somewhere with this." And so I feel one of the major event which happened with IKF was when I was moderating the panel discussion on behalf of IKF. So yeah, it was a huge opportunity for me as moderating the event. So the topic was about advancing the prospects for green hydrogen energy cooperation between India and Korea. So after I had to prepare the whole format, and then questioning people, and then laying down the ground. So it was a very fun and, I would say, insightful discussion which went between professors of university and few of Indian peeps. So that was very nice, and I'm really thankful to Professor Raji for allowing me to moderate this session. And so far, my project with IKF, my research project in the research publication team, and that has also turned out very well. So my topic is urban heat vulnerability and climate resilient governance issues in India. So it's something like a policy lesson which we can take from South Korea. And since this is a very big issue that urbanization and rapid development has happened has actually given a consequence of urban stress over these urban cities, especially if you talk about Mumbai, Delhi, Chennai, Hyderabad. These major four metropolitan cities are under the heat stress. So apparently, this heat which comes generates within these cities, it just gets trapped here inside the cities. There is a dome structure which does not let this heat out of the city. So this is a very major issue, and clearly we need to work upon this. And I really resonate. I feel this is something because I've grown up in Delhi. I have seen Delhi when it used to be winter and we used to wear proper clothes in October, and now even in December you're wearing half sleeves, summer clothes when it's supposed to be 8 degrees, 2 degrees. So I have seen those changes, and I understand this is one of the major reason. So we need heat action plans as well. So maybe in my research we can clearly learn some lessons from South Korea, or maybe have some kind of partnerships with South Korea as well, or some sort of collaborations. But yeah, let's see how the research goes on.
Ritika, as you're talking about all of these kind of complicated topics, how have you shaped your understanding and gained more experience and knowledge in these topics, especially things that seem more hyper-specific and have you talking with professionals and academics in the field, especially given that you've hosted and helped prepare for things like our sustainability panel that happened recently, and as we move forward with different events and research through IKF.
I would say when you're passionate about something, then you just dwell upon the knowledge. And I was always interested in learning more. I feel that's why I have an ambivert personality, I would say, depending upon my moods and depending on in the needs of the situation. So I actually connected with a lot of people through via networking. I feel, and ICARE has actually helped me a lot in networking as well. You guys and some other people as well. So yeah, networking matters a lot. And if you want to build up your knowledge, then networking does help a lot. And ICARE has proved to be a platform for me here in this case, in enhancing my knowledge about this.
Very interesting. IKEA is definitely providing us a very good platform to start our own research interests with. Talking about that, Ritika, we feel that South Korea has often been recognized for integrating sustainability into their national development agenda. So, were there any policies or any approaches from South Korea which particularly stood out for your work, which you feel that India may learn from or integrate in its own national development agenda?
I feel the focus upon building the urban cities with the green infrastructure, and we need to have some kind of habits dwelled within the citizens of the country as well. Everyone's using air conditioning, and it's a must. It's a basic necessity, specifically in the South Indian states of our country. It should be a basic necessity. But where South Korea is leveraging this situation is because they have a planned city, and the cuttings, and there is a thing called certification. We have BEE, right? So the energy efficiency, that is more reliable there, and we are yet to be in the energy efficient area in India. So I think there we can focus upon the whole renewable energy focus that has to be there in India, and we need to have some inculcation of the heat action plans in our country, because obviously we don't need cooling action plans like US, but yes, we need heat action plans in our country where people are just not vulnerable. And you must be hearing about the issues which the laborers are facing these days, right? It's all over the news, and that's why they're not able to go to work. And what about the pay? Because anyways there are daily wage laborers, so they are the most vulnerable currently. So we need to focus upon the governance sector. So maybe IKF and some other organizations, if we all come together and put forward a proposal in front of the government, there has to be some kind of synergy between the two. And then eventually, if people are interested and they also share the same vision, then eventually some policy lessons would be able to help the country.
Ritika, I think what you're doing is such important work. And within your research, you're often talking about urban heat vulnerability as you're talking about the effects and the policy needed and what IKF can potentially do with it. What's some specific things that you think need to be in future policy around urban heat vulnerability? Is there specific quotas that need to be met, or does there need to be commissions or governing bodies that are going to be supporting and implementing these policies? Like, how do you visualize this actually working in the future?
I would say that there has to be separate bodies. So obviously we have Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Not to question anyone's work here, but what are we currently focusing upon? We're focusing upon energy efficient India, we're focusing on green hydrogen, the renewable energy part. But what eventually those are gonna be benefit once the industry has been set up, once the infrastructure has been set up. But on the ground level, the citizens are being vulnerable and they're getting affected. So somewhere climate resilient infrastructure that has to be there. So there is this thing called retrofitting. So retrofitting actually is just a basic idea, architectural idea, that the building is historical, the building is old, but you are just making some tweaks here and there, somewhere within the electrical appliances, electrical sockets, with the paints, shading, or windows, etc. So that can be a single small step to working towards this climate resilient infrastructure at a basic level, and then integrated BEE, energy, and certified electrical appliances, and then what government can do. Wherever the new buildings are being prepared, they can enforce these rules and regulations. They can build nice roads with such climate resilience and parks. Green areas are very important in urban cities. If you go to villages, there are green fields. But what about in cities? We don't have green tree covers. So we need to focus upon that first.
I think what you're talking about applies to a lot of different Indian metropolitan regions. And I know you've done a lot of research with different spaces in India. And as you're studying these cities and as you're studying not only the policy, but the people, do you think that people will receive these policies well? Or is this really on the end of the government where the government needs to move and the people are ready for this policy implementation?
I would like to share an experience here. So maybe this would give a clear idea that who needs to work or who are currently working. So I was part of EDF Climate Corp Fellowship, Environmental Defense Fund Climate Corp Fellowship last year. It's coming from your place. It's a US based organization. So I was matched to a project which is completely different. I never thought that this sector would be getting affected due to climate change and etc. So this was livestock JD sector. So my focus was to build a three-phase roadmap for Tamil Nadu's climate smart dairy sector. How we can make dairy sector climate smart. And methane emissions, animal produced methane emissions, and which is contributing 9% into climate change. I never thought about it. And nobody takes livestock or even textiles that seriously, right? Because it's just a menial sector, I would say, in comparison to fuel, right? And I was just so shocked that what is happening at the ground level is completely different. Whatever is being mentioned, even in the state action plans, is not being followed. So I did research, I conducted stakeholder engagement, policy analysis, I ran through data analysis, emission counting, and then finally, when I came up with the three-phase roadmap, finally it was somewhere the state level has to be there, and then district, and at the village or taluka level. So finally, they implemented this one-stop dairy center, a rural mart, which would enable these dairy farmers, small holders, not the large ones who are part of the cooperatives, but the small and medium dairy farmers to get facilities or maybe the basic information, the total fixed mixed ratio which they would feed their animals. So heat infrastructure and cooling, and even what kind of feed the animals are eating, that has to be managed by these people. So eventually, one private university and with the help of government, this was being set up and it's currently working. But what about the government? So government has plenty of things to do, but clearly the stakeholders which are involved in the value chain, they have to come up and take their accountability and have to be responsible and take an action for that.
This is something that I also often come across my research is that I work with infrastructure, and a lot of people complain that our infrastructure is actually not climate resilient, and especially in the Northeast where the weather change and everything, it's extremely hot at this moment. You can actually see it on ground. So taking you back to the ground realities of India and to how South Korea has been combating it for so long. If you can maybe tell us something from your research that how South Korea has sustainable urban planning or heat adaptation, is there anything specific which you have come across which we can maybe immediately start working on in India, which we can take from South Korea, or because technology transfer is a major deal between the two countries and something which IKF is also endorsing for. So in that area, is there something, Ritika, that we can think of?
Yes, clearly. Technology transfer is definitely one point, which we discussed in the panel discussion earlier as well. But I think investment, the finance sector, that also plays a very major role, because definitely what government is doing, eventually they're going to do it. But what about the private sector? Eventually, the think tanks or even the private companies, they're also coming up with this new phenomenon of ESG reporting and compliance, etc. Right? So, finance sector plays a very vital role here. So, climate finance, and there are multiple global climate finance avenues as well. But the whole structuring of the finance has to be there. And I feel mostly it should be about whom to give the finance, right? You must have heard about the microfinance, micro lending initiatives, right? Which have been going in Southeast Asian areas, right? So clearly, we need to have those. And South Korea has actually a well designed structure for sustainable finance. And I feel the initiatives are also very important. And it has to be customized, particularly for our country. Our country is currently facing landslides and flood. You know what is happening in Assam. It's terrible. If we had a proper predictive analysis or something, maybe we would have been led well. We could have a strengthened preparedness.
Actually,
That's
this is something, your work is very much relevant because Jhartau, if you go to the news right now, you will see how Assam floods are the biggest news at this point in the region. I am not much aware of how the rest of India knows, but our people are devastated at this point. And it is all because of the not having climate resilient infrastructure, as what Ritika is saying. So yeah, I think taking this platform to talk about Assam floods and what you are working is a very good thing to address.
It's clearly we need flood insurance, we need heat insurance, we need a lot of insurance, and we can clearly learn all these things from South Korea.
Ritika, combining all of these things that you've been talking about in this episode, how do you think that things like satellite data and geospatial analysis can improve the climate governance and disaster resilience that you're seeing happen in India? And also, like, taking an understanding and being inspired by the South Korean efforts in that too.
So, Earth intelligence is a very great area to work upon currently, and which is, I feel, it's going on everywhere. There are companies there in Switzerland and Sweden who are working on flood intelligence right now using physics, etc. So currently, I am working at Harvest Global. So what we envision is about, you need to have a proper strengthened preparedness. So you need to use predictive analysis. So you'll be building this unified Earth intelligence platform, a stack basically, which has different models. So one model would be about flood intelligence. One model would be about disaster risk management, landslide management, forest, climate intelligence, and weather modeling, and agriculture, which we've been currently working on. So you need to have a integration of geospatial analysis and generative AI and predictive analysis. So if you combine all of these with satellite data, then the analysis would not be definitely 100% efficient, obviously, but 99%. And using the terrain monitoring, how the land is changing using satellite data, you can understand and then you can predict what can happen within the next few days or maybe within the next few months.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And taking that note of what will happen in the next, we have to talk about the future. And since we are also running short on time, I would really like to know what gives you the most hope about climate action in India and also in terms of India-Korea engagement in the sector.
I feel the feeling of the need of urgency between the two countries because climate risk is definitely not gonna change, and with the time it will increase day by day, year by year. So once people realize that it is real and it is affecting people and people are willing to take action for that, then definitely the translation of technical issues into policy would definitely help people.
Thank you so much for joining us today to talk about these very important issues, Ritika. To everyone listening, thank you for tuning into another episode of the IKF podcast. If you want to join us and listen to future episodes, please make sure to subscribe and follow us on our socials. And again, until next time, goodbye, everyone, and good night.
Goodbye, everyone. Good night.
Thank you.